I'd like to just say that I see no harm in simply looking at the narrative that we're all presented, and then just questioning whether it's true or false. Now let's officially begin episode 14. I've shown this map in past episodes, but today I want to talk about it, along with other things, but I want to start with this map. How many of you were ever taught about Tártária being on a map in class growing up? How many of you have ever heard of Tártária? Anywhere? Ever? Why are there so many maps with a country or a group of people named Tártária? It's not there for no reason. It was also shown as Grand Tártária. Where did it go? Who were these people? And why were we never shown this in government-run education systems? I went through college and through all of my years of the education system, a country that took up most of the land in the world not too long ago was never spoken of. This fact alone has to get you interested in this topic. What's going on here? This isn't a map from 5,000 years ago. This is relatively recent. It spanned across Russia, Japan, America, Europe, Australia, and China. These maps are clear proof that this group of people were here. They existed. It's not debatable. This is why we see building structures that look exactly the same all over the place. Same style in every country across the world. It's not an accident. And it wasn't from thousands of years ago. It also wasn't from 100 years ago, in the 1800s. We didn't build these buildings. This empire did. Now, to be clear, this is all my opinion and simply sharing the knowledge that I've gathered. You are free to believe what you feel comfortable believing. Now that we've shown the maps, I'd like to jump around a little bit in today's episode and show some interesting things that I've found. Here we are in Sydney, Australia, the Sydney Town Hall, built in 1875, as the narrative goes. Thankfully, this building is still standing for us to see today. This took 9 short years to build. Relatively simple to build in the 1800s, as these individuals had the skill of construction mastered, of course. This was built right on top of a cemetery. This story begins to get weird and gets me wondering if they're telling the truth. I'm 100% sure they're not, but it's enjoyable to find the flaws. The building was constructed in 2 stages. Really? The first stage took 5 years. Which was the main hall. This architecture was won by a contest. Here we go with the contests again. You can see the U.S. Capitol building video I made if you're interested in learning about prisoners being master builders and contest winners being the best architects of all time. Anyway, let's continue. The second part of the building was modified by the city engineer to reduce costs. Who the heck is this individual? Who is the city engineer? What is this person's name? I think we know this is a complete lie. I'm going to explain what this is really telling us. We found this building. We had no idea how to build that well, so we added a second part to it that is way cheaper looking because that's how we build. They didn't choose to build cheaper. They had to. Okay, well, that building was incredible. Now we're going to probably have to go thousands of miles away to find anything else that has incredible architecture in Australia. Wait. Is there something else in Australia with incredible architecture? What is that right next door? Oh my gosh, I give up. I give up. What is that? It's St. Andrew's Cathedral? It's St. Andrew's Cathedral, of course. Supposedly, these 2 buildings were built within 10 years of each other. That's hilarious. They say this is the oldest cathedral in Australia. Good old Edmund Blackett is the one responsible for this design. He supposedly designed 2 universities, 3 cathedrals, and 50 or more parish churches, as well as banks, offices, bridges, mansions, and countless shops, cottages, and terrace houses. What a guy. And now I'm extremely interested, and I want to see all of these old world buildings that they say this cartoon character designed. He's best known for the design of the University of Sydney, built in 1850. Another cathedral, St. Saviour's Cathedral, built in 1874. St. John's College. We build colleges like this? Well, we used to build things better in the 1800s. We used to really put a lot of effort into our buildings because we really cared about it. And now it's just all about the bottom dollar. Yeah, right. Sorry, but I'm not buying that narrative. We build like trash because we do. These palaces are built like palaces because the builders had the keys to it. They knew how. Pretend I gave you a key to a $500,000 car and you got in it and go 10 miles an hour around the racetrack. You get back and I ask you, why did you go so slow? And you reply, I just wanted to save gas money. Sorry. But if you had a Ferrari, you are not worried about gas money. If we really have the technology to build these places, we would build them, and they'd go up all over the place still, but they don't. And we can tell the difference between an old world building that isn't built by us versus a building that we built, and it's simple. The distinction is clear. In 300 years, our buildings will look rusty and old. I'm not even sure they'll still be standing. They're not built to last. But this castle college that Mr. Blackett was supposedly responsible for building will stand the test of time and beyond. That thing isn't going anywhere, unless it's on purpose. What else did this character supposedly design? Oh, a grammar school that has pillars, of course. 3 pillars will not be enough. Add another one to this grammar school, and I want it done now. Built in 1857, this is the oldest school in Sydney according to the narrative. This school also holds scientific significance as containing examples of early building materials and techniques in pre-Federation Australia. Oh, I'm sure it does. Did they seriously write that? This is used as a private school now. Only $36,000 a year to enter. Oh, this is nice. They let you know that you can pay it in 3 installments of $12,205 each. How nice of them. This is for children, not college. Kindergarten through 12th grade. $36,000 a year from 1,833 students, raking in roughly $66 million a year. Could we get people in a building paying this kind of cash for elementary school if the building was crap? Or do we get this cash because the building is clearly the main attraction? Comment below and tell me. I think we get the point that this architect was most likely not a real person and is being used as a pawn to tell these narratives and supposedly explain why these buildings are here. As a small bonus, I want to add in this water tower in Chicago. I was able to visit this site and check it out for myself for a much closer look, and I want to put a theory out there about it. It could be wrong, but I like to speculate sometimes and see where it goes. There were a small amount of buildings that survived, and this is one of them, in the Chicago fire. Is it possible that this water tower used to, or possibly still does, work as some sort of sprinkler system? I say that because not only did the structure make it through the fire, but so did the building across the street. Very strange, and something to think about at least. A water tower is a thing that survives a fire? Coincidence? I think not. For a while now. It has to be one of the most incredible things in the world, if not the most incredible. I just have so many questions to ask about it, so let's get into it. Let's kind of go over the basic narrative a little here, and then we can dissect it together. They began building this in the year of 1248 in Germany. They say that when they began construction, the exact site that they were supposedly going to build this cathedral was already taken by something. Yeah, that something was this cathedral. Just reading this paragraph right here has to get everyone questioning the narrative. When I read this, remember to keep my video about the fires destroying all of the old world buildings in your mind. The second church, called the Old Cathedral, was completed in 818. It was destroyed by fire on the 30th of April in 1248. During demolition work to prepare for a new cathedral. So it was destroyed by a fire while trying to destroy the building? To build a new building? This is the exact thing we're talking about. Destroying old world buildings with a great fire to replace it with something new. Let's remember that this story is most likely not true. But the fact that they're basically admitting the truth about what they did to the buildings within this story is for sure worth noting. It's basically an admission of what they do and just putting it right out there in this story. Remember, there literally wasn't a timeline here. They could say anything they want. And for this story, they decide to say this took hundreds of years to build, because they have time to burn. They can say, oh yeah, this was started 1,000 years ago and wasn't finished until 1800s. For anyone who's been watching my previous episodes, you'll fully understand what I mean about finishing projects in the 1800s. 1800s is when the timeline for our group of people began, in my opinion. And it looks like in a few other people's opinion as well. There have been previous civilizations. As I always like to say, you are free to think whatever you like, and that is perfectly okay. The completion of Germany's largest cathedral was celebrated as a national event on the 14th of August in 1880, 632 years after the construction had begun. This is a complete joke. They didn't finish it in 1780, 1680, 1980. No, they finished the most incredible cathedral after 632 years. In 1880. No, this was made by a previous civilization, not in our fabricated timeline. This thing is 516 feet tall. Let's dive back into this narrative here. They say this was the tallest building in the whole world, for only 4 years. So for 632 years they build this thing. Finally finish it in 1880. Now only 4 years later something else tops it? What tops it? The Washington Monument. Can we just go take a look at that for a second? This obelisk is now the tallest thing in the world in 1884. Robert Mills draws this thing up in 1845. The same guy who draws up Greco-Roman style treasury buildings, Greco-Roman style patent office buildings, Greco-Roman style Smithsonian art museums, and of course Greco-Roman style national portrait galleries. Come on. Do we really believe this guy designed these buildings and had them all constructed? Or is it more plausible that this Robert Mills guy is a fictional character that they can plug into these stories to explain away 5 to 10 buildings that come from the old world? I know which answer I'm going with. Oh, I'm sure Robert was a nice guy and was really just great at his job and figured out how to get these materials there and was one of a kind. Give me a break. Okay. Now that we definitely know that the obelisk was from the old world, let's get back to the Cologne Cathedral. Mostly because I like looking at it and wondering who the heck built this. It has so much detail. It is clearly not built in the 1200s, the 1300s, the 1400s, 15, 16, 17, 18, 1900s, or present day. But if you ask any historian, they will tell you the 1800s got the job done. Those 1800s people, they just had it down. They knew how to do things the right way. They worked harder than us and just figured it out. This narrative and excuse is just insane at this point. Which company was hired for 632 years? Who actually believes this took 632 years? Whoever built this did not take 6.5 centuries. They got the job done and did it well. They knew what they were doing. They had technology to get it done. They didn't make a single flaw. It stands before us today. And it will stand there forever, as long as they don't knock it down on purpose. Good old Robert Mills, what a guy. Okay, where should we go next? I think today I'll cover something that someone has commented and asked about. Let's go to London and check out the Crystal Palace. Okay, so right off the bat we have something interesting. This was built in 1851 and destroyed in 1936. The architect's name is Joseph Paxton. Okay, this has to be the most ridiculous story I've ever read in my whole life. This tops them all. Here we go. I'm not making this up. On the evening of the 30th of November in 1936, Buckland was walking his dog near the palace with his daughter, Crystal, named after the building, which, of course, they just needed to throw in there, when they noticed a red glow within it. Buckland went inside. He found 2 of his employees fighting a small office fire that had started after an explosion in the women's cloakroom. Realizing that it was a serious fire, they called the fire department. Although 89 fire engines and 400 firemen arrived, they were unable to extinguish it. Within hours, the palace was destroyed. Okay, so this story never happened. There was no dog walker, no crystal, none of this. It's fake. It's not real, and they purposely burnt it down because it was an old world building. Do we understand that? I know I haven't covered the World's Fairs fully yet, but I believe that they had World's Fairs to bring brand new people to these abandoned cities, and then use it as an excuse to tear down the incredible architecture. Now, this building was supposedly built for the Crystal Palace's World Fair. Not to mention that they built this place in 8 months? How did they do that? In 1851? These people just threw this thing up in 8 months? A 1 million square foot palace? Right here, in the narrative, it states that 2,000 men built this. Who are these 2,000 men? Is it exactly 2,000? Which company do they work for? Were they prisoners like most stories say? What is going on here? This is turning into a complete embarrassment for the narrative. Exactly 2,000 men can find a way to make Joseph Paxton's drawings come to life. Who provided the tools? Who provided transportation of the materials? Do we get the point? This is from the old world. 2,000 random fake characters didn't make this palace. If anyone has any topics or places you are interested in that you'd like me to cover, just comment below and I'll take a look. I really enjoy reading all of your comments. I'm very thankful that we're able to build this community bigger and bigger every week. You guys keep me going. This is really, really fun. And we're just getting started. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. And I look forward to sharing with you again very, very soon. Today, I want to get right into this episode and show you guys this building. This building is called the Bowery Savings Bank. It's located in New York City, and it took 24 years to build. Oh, years? No, I meant months. 24 months. 2 years. I think it takes 2 years to build a new car. So building this palace should be no problem in 1893 to 1895, right? Alright, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit. About Ford being able to process a car. But they do take a while to get if you're ordering one online. Anyway, enough about Ford and back to this building. This is an L-shaped building, and it was designed by master architect Stanford White. And I've added the master part, of course. Now, the narrative states that Stanford White was a trendsetter. He was the Kim Kardashian of bank styles, paving the way for all other banks in the USA to copy his style and build Roman classic-style banks. That's a great excuse to explain away all the other banks. Just say they copied this one. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Stanford White. Can we just look at this guy's picture for a second? Nothing against mustaches. They're great. But if I had to rub a picture in everyone's face and put an imposter in a Wikipedia page, this would be it. Now, supposedly, White was a disgusting guy. I'll highlight what it says about the 16-year-old that he was doing things with, and I don't need to go any further. Whether this guy was real or not, my opinion is that he wasn't real, and they're making this insane story up. He didn't design this building, and they didn't build this in just 2 years. They found this building and repurposed it. Now let's pretend we were going to write up a story about the architect and try to make it sound so crazy that it's believable. Okay, perfect. Let's say that this guy was horrible to another man's wife. And of course, she wouldn't be 18. What else could we throw in there? Let's put a fake mustache on him in this photo. Yes, now we're talking. So what else is he in charge of designing? Let's see. Oh yes, the Madison Square Garden. Oh, no. Not that piece of garbage. Yes, this masterpiece. Here we are in Manhattan, New York City. It's 1890, and time for this massive stadium to be constructed. 36 years later, what do you think they should do with this thing? After 36 years, let's just knock it down. And so it was decided by the New York Life Insurance Company that it needed to be demolished. Can you believe that this needed to be knocked down after 36 years? I'm sorry to break it to anyone who was on the fence, but this was not built in 1890. It was here for much longer than 36 years. And in 1926, they were destroying these structures all over the world. If you're watching and saying, no, I don't believe this guy, that's okay. I am fine presenting proof, shall we? Moscow. Sakharov Tower, built from 1692 to 1701, destroyed in 1934 by the Soviet authorities. The main entrance to the 1905 World's Fair in Belgium, demolished after the conclusion of the exhibition. Vienna, Austria, built in 1882 to 1883, seems legit, destroyed by a bombing in 1945 during World War II. Of course. Right. Erie County Savings Bank, Buffalo, New York, built in 1890 to 1893, only took 3 years, and demolished in 1968. Just didn't need it anymore. Oh, that's only 5 buildings. That's just a coincidence. The Merchants Exchange Building, San Francisco, built in 1866, demolished in 1903 to make way for a larger Merchants Exchange Building. Incredible. Yeah, no, we don't need that anymore. Let's get a new one. This isn't looking up to my standards. Okay, that's 6. It's a little strange. The Navarro Flats, New York City. Construction started in 1882 on 8 separate buildings. Almost immediately, the project ran into financial trouble. Construction stopped when the property was sold in 1888 and demolished it in 1926. Why were they knocking this down? That's 7. Should I continue? Are we getting the point? I'll just continue anyway. William A. Clark House, a.k.a. Clark's Folly. Constructed from 1897 to 1911. Demolished in 1927. They knocked it down 16 years later. Oh boy. The Chicago Federal Building. Construction was between 1898 and 1905. Demolished in 1965. So they only needed that one for 60 years. Nope, just wasn't good enough. Let's knock that thing down. I could go on and on. This is a clear attempt at the destruction of the past. I'm not sure if it is our past or the previous civilization, but to me, it's certainly a clear attempt at a timeline narrative manipulation. Now, after doing some digging, I was just thinking that they probably got to a point where they knocked down enough buildings, where it was in a good place and they could manage to tell these embarrassing stories and sort of get away with it to most people. So when was this point in time? And I think this may be the point. In 1966, the National Register of Historic Places was created, just stating a fact that this was a government-run program. So just saying the government is now preserving buildings as of 1966? Anything before that, nobody cared and could just knock any building they want down. No brand new building would ever make it into this prestigious list. The new buildings just aren't up to the old world standard, and that fact alone should get anyone thinking. So what's going on here? Is it possible they had a change of heart and now cared so much about these buildings? I doubt it. The time to knock them down was over. They got most of them, but in 1966, the people began asking too many questions and caring too much about these buildings, even if they didn't understand why. I'd like to share some personal thoughts at this point and see where it goes. And hopefully you guys can comment below and share what you think as well. After all this research over the years, I have had many thoughts, but I haven't really had too many people to talk about them with. I'm really thankful I finally do have that, thanks to this incredible community that we have here. If the old world has been knocked down hundreds of times, where are we? Do the cities get destroyed so that our reincarnated soul doesn't remember being here before? Do they need a new so-called map for us all to be on every 300 years, or else we would begin to remember, and in doing so, take back our power? I'm not sure, but it does seem possible. Nobody knows where we are or what we're doing here, but it's seeming more and more possible that this was the plan all along. Distraction and misdirection is key to control. And we have a bonus today. I recently took a trip to California and drove into Los Angeles, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I saw pillars on a massive building. Not only were there pillars on this building, but of course they had to put the pillars hundreds of feet in the air. Simple construction, of course. Easy in 1925. This is the Hall of Justice building. And of course, when it was first built, it stood alone. It was the first thing that they did. Everything after that didn't advance. It got worse, which is exactly how evolution works. Oh, wait, no. That's not how it works. That's not right. Well, I'm glad we can definitely confirm that Los Angeles is also an old world city. So they credit the architecture to a group. Here's what it says. The Hall of Justice was designed by Beaux Arts style by the Allied Architects Association, a coalition of Los Angeles-based architects. And then they go on to say 8 guys got together to draw this thing up. This needed 8 random guys to draw it. Is this the only way that they could get enough people to believe it? Let's just throw another architect in there, make it 9. Does it matter how many? The funniest part about this is that they can draw it up, but which company built this thing? No mention of this company anywhere. Nothing. Maybe it was a ghost? Or maybe it was exactly 2,000 people? Like the Crystal Palace in London from episode 15. They go straight from telling us these 8 guys' names to telling us that it was a centerpiece of Los Angeles County justice system. They totally skipped the part where somebody had to build it. Total flaw in the story. 60 pillars in the air, Los Angeles, in 1925. Before we get into the main topic, I want to quickly share these pictures from a book called From the River to the Sea. I'm not going to speak on it long, but just want to show you guys how crazy this narrative is. Here we can clearly see that Los Angeles was established a long time ago. This was 1891. This looks like they've been living here for over 100 years without a doubt. There's no way this entire town gets put up in a few years by people with horse and wagon that have just hiked across the country. This takes time. And where are they getting all their food? Is there a grocery chain that was shipping them fresh fruit daily? How were they feeding all these people to fill the whole town if nobody ever lived on the West Coast? Until they tell us they did. Supposedly, they had a train that ran out there once in a while, but this is clearly an established town. This was a town from the old world, in my opinion. And once they got out there again, they began repurposing everything and making it their own. Okay, let's move on to the main topic of today's episode, the giant steps in Peru. These steps were said to be an agricultural strategy for the Incan Empire. Let's pretend that's true for a second. These are still massive pieces of granite, fitting perfectly together, some weighing over 35 tons. The granite was taken from a quarry at the top of a mountain behind them. So in order to do this, the builders had to bring the granite down the hill, cross a river, and then haul them up these hills to place them where they are today. I'm just going to be honest. This construction company would be the #1 selling stock in the stock market today. It would be the most impressive company in the world. You may say we could easily do this today. Say we could. Could we do it 200 years ago? You may say it's possible. Could we do it 300 years ago? You may say no. Okay, well, according to the narrative, this was supposedly built like 500 years ago. If you don't have red flags going off, then what do we do with you? We all know the mainstream narrative about history is completely screwed up. The timeline is a mess, and they can't seem to put their finger on anything that we really want to know about. So why should we believe their story at any point? About anything. Once I'm lied to once, that's about it. Twice, then I don't trust anything that's said anymore. And the narrator has lied to us hundreds of thousands of times. Well, I just wanted to let you all know that I'm about to start my own agricultural company. I really need to get these 35-ton granite blocks hauled down a mountain, through a river, and up another mountain just to get it started. I need to do this about 100 times. Does this make any sense at all? What are we even talking about? These are clearly stairs. They are 100% stairs. People from all over the world are attracted to this site for a reason, and they don't even understand why they're going there. They think they're seeing an agricultural site. Go visit a farm. No. These people know that this site is more than an agricultural site. It's not a farm. This was the home to giants. We know deep down that this is the truth. These are stairs for giants, and I don't need William Shakespeare to tell me. I can see with my own eyes. I know a giant staircase when I see one. The world is so much more fun and interesting once you've unlocked your mind, and you're able to see what's actually in front of you. The possibilities become endless, and the truth becomes a reality. My giant stair rant is officially over for today, and I want to go to the Parthenon in Nashville, Tennessee. Why does Nashville have a Parthenon? And are we sure this was built in 1897 like we're told? It's a full-scale replica of the original Athens, Greece. My question is, if this is true, why are we doing this in the 1800s? We don't do this kind of stuff today. So what's going on here? Another World's Fair. So this was built for the World's Fair of 1897. Apparently, this World's Fair had a bunch of buildings that were based on ancient originals. Ancient originals? So I'm going to step out of the narrative, and so that everybody here at this point can understand that these were not based on ancient buildings. Of course they would keep them all. Oh, no. They knocked all of them down right after the fair was over. Besides this one, why just keep one? Same with Chicago. Why keep a few? What is that about? Is this a part of that thing where they have to tell you a little bit of the truth, like it's against the rules? I can't think of any other reason. Why not just knock all of them down? The real question that should be asked is, why are they not all still standing when it must have been extremely difficult to build incredible replicas of ancient structures in the 1800s? Replicas! These are replicas, they say. I know if we built them today, they'd still be standing. We wouldn't just knock it down right after. Does this make sense? Do we build anything today for gatherings and then knock it down a year later? Maybe tents for backyard parties, not Parthenons. How clear can this get? Who is this fooling anymore? In the narrative, it clearly states that the Parthenon was not intended to be permanent. But the cost of demolition, and here is the key part, which I think I know what happened now. The residents did not allow the demolition. The people stood up and said no. Interesting. Is this proof that we were here before the World's Fairs? I believe so. Why would residents care if a building got knocked down? If it was only there for a few short months? Why would they care? Especially when they knew that that was the plan all along, was to knock it down. No. There was no plan to knock it down. There was no plan to build it. It was there before 1897. It was there, and they attempted to knock it down and failed dramatically. You know, I was thinking, and I think the coolest part about this overall is that we are all different. We are all doing different things in life. But we all get along and come together and agree for the most part, and we are able to all enjoy what we're doing together. It's a great thing. Now I want to take a look at the St. Giles Cathedral. More specifically, the Thistle Chapel, where we have the Tree of Life symbol carved into the ceiling. Of course we do. This is located in Edinburgh, Scotland, and was completed in 1910, so they say. Sir Robert Stoddart Lorimer was the architect, which is really interesting because he was most known for, wait for it, furniture designing skills. So we have a furniture designer creating the blueprints for a chapel with the Tree of Life as a ceiling. What kind of nonsense is this? Another fun fact about this Sir Robert Stoddart Lorimer, is that he was initiated into the Scottish Freemasonry in Lodge Holyrood House, St. Luke's. Great information. Thank you, Wikipedia. Oh, but Wikipedia is unreliable. Oh, is it? Which part exactly? The exact date that it was completed? The architect's exact name? The fact that he was a furniture designer and a Freemason? Right. The whole Wikipedia is unreliable hoax is just another way to guide people away from the story. This is specifically installed in all universities, where they do not allow Wikipedia to be a reliable source. So then, when we see someone researching these topics and using Wikipedia, it's immediately disregarded everything the person's saying, even when most of it or all of it is clearly fact and undeniable. And we will definitely be covering universities in the very near future. Now, am I reading this wrong? I don't think I am, but if I am, please correct me. They are saying that Sir Robert Stoddart Lorimer died in 1929, which is fine, I'll give that to them, that he built the Stowe School 1 year before he died. But when we go deeper into this and click on the Stowe School, it clearly states that it was completed in 1779. We have found a major narrative mess up here. They then try to go around it and basically say that it sat there for 144 years. Doing absolutely nothing, and then finally opens up on May 11th, 1923. These dates are all over the place. What a mess. A horrible one in my opinion. They didn't think this one all the way through at all. Amazing. So this Stowe School is extremely interesting and not built by Mr. Lorimer. Was this character even real? Have we found yet another fake architect? Could this be? I think so. And here, all the way in Bosnia. I just want to point this out for a little bonus. And maybe a little laugh. They just found this pyramid recently. So you're telling me they built this huge town right next to this big pyramid mountain and nobody noticed it? One day, did someone just wake up and look out the window and say, that mountain is looking a lot like a pyramid today? Absolutely insane. Let's get right into this. I'm really excited to show you all what we found this week. The Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, California. This place supposedly opened in 1913 and has fitted marble walls with an incredible dome. The architecture is incredible. This is the largest natural and historical museum in the western United States. The rotunda measures 75 feet in diameter and made with Italian marble. The floor is made with mosaic tile. They say that there was a museum association that was established in 1910 that was the driving factor behind building this building. If this is true, then it took less than 3 years in 1910 to 1913 to get this project started and completed. All materials, blueprints, tools, employees, the land permits, get it all together and complete it in just 3 years, back in 1913. Now the key part that I want to make very clear, and it repeats in so many of these stories, is that they tell us who the architecture supposedly is, and who drew the blueprints on a piece of paper, whether they're real or not. But they skip right over the big part that someone had to actually physically build these buildings. Who are these people? Which company was this? No mention of this anywhere is a clear giveaway that the builder was not them. If these people actually built this, they would mention and give credit to the actual builder. They'd be yelling it from the rooftop. If it's only 100 years old, surely they would know exactly who did it, but nothing. No builder in the narrative. Simply incredible, and a huge eye-opener, in my opinion. Italian marble on a 75-foot diameter rotunda that is 58 feet in the air with a 20-foot-long skylight, because you have to add the skylight, of course. Notice how there's also an original building, which looks like it's from a different civilization that builds with perfection. Then they also go on to say that they've opened up additional wings to this building in 1925, 1930, 1960, and 1976. None of these additions look anything like the original. They're all different. There's no Italian marble, no skylights, just regular 2x4s and boring architecture that we have evolved into today. 1925 was supposedly only 12 years after the original building was built. So why would they build with such excellence in 1913? But 12 years later, we just give up and no longer care about the exact same building? We're asking these questions, but the answers are clear. We did not build the original Natural History Museum in Los Angeles, California. It's time for us to travel all the way to Italy. I want to cover a few things here, but first, we will focus on Rome. Here we have the Temple of Minerva Medica, supposedly built like 1,700 years ago. Who are we kidding here? If you have seen the last 17 episodes, you will fully understand what I'm about to say, and just another incredible proof in my mind that our timeline begins in the 1800s. Here it is. The decagonal structure is relatively preserved. Though the full dome collapsed in 1828, unbelievable. So this thing was perfect for 1,400 years. But here come the wild 1800s, and the dome collapses randomly. Of course it was random. Sure. Then it goes on to say, and it clearly states, that there is no mention of this structure in any ancient literature. So was this actually built 1,700 years ago? No, it wasn't. This was built by the old world, probably about 400 to 500 years ago, and possibly sooner than that. And I'll give that assumption some validation by going to California. California? Why would we go to California to prove that something in Rome was possibly built in the 1800s? The Palace of Fine Arts, located in San Francisco, California, constructed in 1915 and designed by the one and only Bernard Maybeck. A 162-foot high, 49-meter open rotunda is enclosed by a lagoon on one side and adjoins a large curved exhibition center on the other side. Maybeck designed what was essentially a fictional ruin from another time. He took his inspiration from Roman and ancient Greek architecture, specifically the Temple of Minerva Medica in Rome. So exactly what we were just talking about. Is this story fact or fiction? Who built this then? No mention of that, of course. Who built this then? Which company? No mention of that, of course, but let's get to the point. These structures are basically exact, in totally different continents, one being destroyed in 1828, the other supposedly being built 87 years after this event. Were these actually built at the same time all around the world? What are the point of these things anyway? What are you doing building 162-foot open rotunda structures surrounded by lagoons in San Francisco in 1915? All for show? First of all, the architecture was clearly incredible. It's undeniable. And draw it up all you want, but then getting people to build it is another thing. And of course, no mention of any company that was in the business of turning these blueprints into a reality. Here we go, a little further, and fully understand what this place was constructed, and according to this narrative, that is so insightful and trustworthy. I can't even imagine what we would do without this kind of storytelling. What is this place? Please tell us. We just need to know. Oh wait, here we have it. This structure was created to be a quiet zone. A quiet zone? I'm going to see how many quiet places we build today that have a resemblance of ancient Roman structures. Okay, I'm looking, okay, and oh, it's zero, none. A quiet place. These are not built to be quiet places, and that is obvious to this community. These had a different purpose, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to harness energy for the old world and distribute it to the entire town. That is my opinion, and it's 100% more believable than thinking this was a quiet place. You could go there and yell a little and make some noise, and it will no longer be a quiet place. This narrative is so ridiculous and so much fun to laugh at. I'm going to stay in California for this next building because we are on a roll here. The Calvary Presbyterian Church in San Francisco, California. In 1904, this building just appeared out of thin air. Just get the funds and boom, it's there. Who are we kidding here? Look at this place, please. I do say this often, but it needs to be repeated to make sure we're all understanding what is being said here. If someone was building this building today, we would all be amazed. It would be known to the whole world that this was being constructed. Please take a few seconds to just look at this picture. They are riding around on horses. They did not build this place. They are probably looking at this building and wondering where the heck it came from, just like we are. Or maybe they knew where it came from and knew that it was a past civilization that built it. No roads, but we're just constructing massive churches on the West Coast. How many bricks did it take to build this building? Oh, only 1 million? Okay, simple. Which company transported these 1 million bricks? Oh, yeah, no mention of that. Yeah, of course. Dang, I would have asked them to help me with that. I have 1 million bricks to move, but I didn't know who to ask in the year 1900. I'm sure they accidentally forgot to put that in the story. I wish they would have told me. Imagine having 1 million bricks to move in 1900. Which company were they asking? Here's the architect that they give us. A guy named John, a disgusting fictional character. The narrator is turning into a disgusting individual the more and more we dig. You can read what they have written about this fake architect. I can't even repeat it. I have highlighted it here. It's weird that they marked this man as an architect for this building. But once you go to his page, there's no mention of him ever drawing up any plans for this building. They didn't even mention that he was the architect of the biggest church on the West Coast. Pretty sure that would be on the top of my bio page. Whoops. Accidentally forgot to add that key moment. This fake, disgusting character had no involvement with this building, and this is an admission in my opinion. Let's keep this episode in California to push the point that people were building structures and occupying California with technology that surpasses what we have today, way before we're told in the narrative. The Holbert Building. They say this building was built in the year of 1914. Simple. Because they had Willis Polk to design this 21-floor masterpiece that was handcrafted brass and Italian marble. If you try to find who actually built this building, it just tells you that Mr. Polk designed it. Let's pretend he did. That doesn't mean that he owns a construction company. And if he did, why isn't this mentioned anywhere? Did he build it himself, 21 stories in the air? Who actually built these buildings? Since nobody is telling us, we are 100% allowed to ask these questions. Does Willis Polk have his own tools? How long did this building take to build? Did Polk have any employees? If so, how many? 1, 2, 40? Did he have a way of getting resources to the site in 1914 in California? No, 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 and no. I'd like to send out a friendly challenge to any historian that can prove which company or group of people built this building. I'd genuinely like to know. It'll never happen, but good luck. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode and enjoyed exposing the narrative flaws.